Good afternoon and welcome to the Spokane City Council Public Safety Meeting. I'm hearing the audio is low, so I'll just kick it over to Councilmember Kinnear, who is the chair.
Thanks, Candace. Councilmember Pro Tem Mum, I could barely hear you. Let me check I will turn up just a bit. Welcome everybody to Public Safety and Community Health Committee meeting for August 2nd. Could I have someone make a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second? Anyone?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? And anybody? Okay, we're good. Thank you. And the first thing we're going to do is have, we have a new person here. Curtis Reese is going to give us a report on canines. So would you like to go ahead?
Yes, thank you. I have the July report here for the canine deployments. We had 58 deployments. We had 19 captures, 1 contact, which gave us a ratio of about 5.2% on that for those numbers. The top 3 training things that we had this last month, we worked on apprehension, building searches, and tracking. And then one thing that I'd like to highlight is on July 23rd, Officer Buckman and his canine partner Trace deployed to report of a burglary in progress. They found a broken window in the back of the house. Officers were able to surround the home, and Officer Buckman and Trace remained at the back door there. Male began to exit the home, and he was carrying several bags and items. Officer Buckman, with the help of his canine partner, verbally challenged the male, who dropped the belongings, sat down, and was taken into custody with no force being used. So just a highlight of a good job by them. And that's what I have. Did you want the year-to-date deployments as well?
Council, do you want the year-to-date? Getting nods, so yes, please.
All right, so for our year-to-date deployments, we've had 593 year-to-date, 187 captures, 9 contacts, and that ratio would be 4.8%.
Thank you. Questions from council? No, thanks very much. Curtis, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And council, while we're on this subject, rather than do this every month, would it be a better idea to do this quarterly so that we save some staff time? I get a thumbs up. Great. Anybody a thumbs down? All right, let's do that. So Mr. Ormsey, Mr. Perkins, let's take note of that. And I don't see Chief, I think he's away. So Major Olson, if you'll make a note of that as well, we can do quarterly reports, save some time. I didn't have any consent agenda items asked to be taken off the agenda. So we're going to go right into staff requests. Rebranding of probation to community justice services with Howard Delaney. Mr. Delaney, are you, there you are. Do you want to go ahead?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, council members. Again, my name is Howard Delaney. I'm from Spokane Municipal Court. I'm the court administrator. What you're seeing in the briefing packet is a series of changes to the Spokane Municipal Code in support of the ongoing criminal justice reforms that the court has been working on for nearly the past decade, and specifically in anticipation of the launch of the supported release project that council was kind enough to fund shortly before COVID came to town, in which we are now hoping we're mostly post-COVID, preparing to launch. Essentially what it does is simply rebrand the term probation department to community justice services. I will note that we have mentioned this potential of rebranding in a couple of national meetings that our chief probation officer attends, and actually garnered some attention, and the national folks are pretty excited to see if this has the anticipated effect of reducing resistance to the question of pre and post disposition supervision, and particularly in the defense bar, and actually helping us make a difference in terms of changing behavior to avoid both pre and post conviction violations of supervision, as well as reduce recidivism rates, again, overall changing behavior. So it's pretty simple. What it does is, again, rebrand probation from probation to community justice services. Are there any questions I can answer? I'm happy to.
Questions for Mr. Delaney? Anybody? Wow, you got off light this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is ordinance incorporating revised drug possession offenses and penalties into the SMC. Ms. Miramatsu.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. So by way of background, the Washington Supreme Court in State v. Blake struck down the drug possession statute. This happened in February. And so for a period of time, the state was without a simple possession of controlled substances statute. The legislature fixed that problem. The problem had been that the statute did not make explicit proof of a mental state. And so the legislature took the opportunity to revise this defective statute and added the word knowingly to 4 different portions of that statute: simple possession, legend drug, possession of marijuana, and possession of counterfeit drugs. They also made some revisions to the use of drug paraphernalia law. What we have proposed is an ordinance that incorporates the revised drug possession offenses and their penalties and makes that prosecutable in Spokane Municipal Court. Of importance is the fact that this is no longer a felony offense. This is now a misdemeanor offense, but the legislature also made some preconditions to prosecution for a police officer who encounters a person who is in possession of drugs. Those first 2 contacts would be referrals to treatment. So the police department and the prosecutor's offices, both city and county, have collaborated and have put together a process. They've created a form, and it would be a documentation of the first and second contacts. Officers would have to develop probable cause. They would do that by field testing and coming up with a presumptive screening that there, in fact, is a controlled substance. They would place items of illegal drugs onto property for storage for up to 1 year, and they would carefully document. That information would be collected, maintained into the police CAD system, where they would be able to locate that and determine if there is a third contact. The third contact is referable and citable, arrestable, but the prosecutor's office would be diverting those into community court. So again, this is just adopting the state law into the municipal code and allowing a process to take effect that would allow these to be prosecutable on the third offense. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions for Ms. Miramatsu? Councilmember Wilkerson, go ahead.
So, Mary, how soon do we anticipate this process being stood up? How they document the first and second encounter before it goes to the third one? Do we have a timeline?
So just as soon as, and Council Member Wilkerson, thank you for the question. The department is prepared to take action immediately once the law goes into effect. So just as soon as council passes the ordinance and the mayor signs the legislation and it goes into effect, the department is ready to proceed immediately. So once they begin encountering individuals with drugs, anything that they can establish that is in violation of this, and there are, I believe, 4 separate offenses that are applicable. Actually, there are 5. One of them, however, is the unlawful use of drug paraphernalia as amended by the state law, but there are 4 that actually pertain to illegal substances. And the police department is up and running with a process ready to begin just as soon as this takes effect. So fortunately, the form is all created. It's been vetted. It's got a list of service providers throughout the region. The system is built within the CAD RMS system so that an individual would be trackable in their, what they call a file jacket. Ms. Ernst from the police department was able to build a nice tool that will allow the police department to actually see and check if an individual has had a prior referral to treatment. And that will be documented along with the fact that in those first 2 contacts, what they found was actually field tested and therefore probable cause was indeed established, even if those first 2 weren't citable and arrestable. So yeah, I think to answer your question, we're ready to go right away.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Council President Beggs.
Yeah, thanks, Mary, for getting on this so quickly. I have a concern. I don't have necessarily a prescription for the concern, but when I look at the form, you know, it has the list of drug treatment entities near us, but it's a very static list, and we don't know whether they actually have openings for people. And it's not a warm handout. You know, the form just says it's your job to go to these places. And so I'm not quite convinced that that's the spirit of the law, whether it's the technical. And it seems like we need a follow-up from some agency that we have influence on after we've issued this to talk to the person and find out what's their situation. Are they on Medicaid or not on Medicaid? Or do these places have openings? How do we get them? And so I know you're just giving the dry legal piece today, but I'm just wondering what's the conversation about that? Because simply giving people this list of places and not knowing which ones are open and which ones would be most appropriate, we call it the difference between a cold and a warm handoff. I'm just wondering what's been the discussion about that?
Yeah, Council President, that's an excellent bit of feedback, and it's something that I think we can continue to discuss. I think it's great feedback. There is a behavioral health unit that includes individuals from behavioral health riding with the police department. It may be that between them and the Behavioral Health Association run by the county, that there may be someone who can actually fill in the gap with that piece for follow-up. What I'll do is I'll take that information back to the team that is creating this and to the city prosecutors. I think they'd be interested in hearing that. But I don't see any reason why we can't continue to develop this and make it better. I would certainly agree that if we have something that is meaningful in place, we don't let anybody fall through the cracks. It's still something in development.
That's perfect. I look forward to hearing more. I'd like to hear back for that before we implement it, because I might want to put some language that, you know, it doesn't really count as a referral until there's been a little bit of more follow-up on it. Like that would be part 1 of the referral, but to complete the referral, and potentially to the degree of good faith effort, because sometimes these people will be difficult to track down. So I'm not saying that, but that's just my thing is that, yeah, we should follow up, and then that really puts it in another thing. If we followed up and we have a bed for them and they're really like, no way, then that is a different kind of a situation, I think. So thank you for your work on this and agreeing
Absolutely.
to do it.
And thank you for your comments. I think Major Olson and I have a couple
Major
of follow-up
Olson.
comments.
I see you waving. Go ahead. And then
And if I may,
Member Cathcart right after that.
Can you hear me okay? Thank you. So this is modeled after a number of other agencies in the state are doing it this exact same way. This is this placard was taken and adapted from that. That is the way I think Snow County, Benton, and at least one other, this is the same way they're all doing it in order to comply with the statute. Just wanted you to have that information because the BHU will not have capacity to go out and do follow up on that. That's an avenue that's probably going to go down a different trail. But I don't know that they'll would have the capacity to do follow-up on this in addition to what they're already doing, because they're not able even to complete the tasks that we want them doing within the behavioral health unit requirements.
No, that is so fair, and I think Councilmember Kinnear and I are working on getting more BHU resources for that. And my thing is, I totally appreciate it's modeled on the other, but I just think it would be more effective, and we would have to spend the resources to make it more effective. But given that we want to create the best city around and really make this work, so I totally.
And just on the final note, the Spokane County and Spokane City prosecutors have looked at it and approved it as both the form and function of it. So just so you're aware of that as well.
Councilmember Cathcart, go ahead.
Yeah, and this is probably a question for Major Olson. I'm just wondering from a process-wise kind of how this will work. So the first two contacts are essentially just kind of warnings, I mean, more or less. And then the third, if there is a third, would they actually take that person to jail? Would they cite them? Kind of what, can you just walk through what that looks like from the officer's perspective?
Sure. So on the first two contacts where probable cause is established that the person, the subject's in possession of controlled substance, whether it be meth or heroin or crack cocaine, all these dangerous drugs, if they were contacted with that, the drugs would be seized, placed on property as evidence. A report would be written. Basically, they are given this referral form. We sign it, and if we can, I'm trying to think of the other part of this. One more part of that, sorry. We give them that copy, and then a report is written. It's recorded in our system. After the first contact and then the second contact, and then on the third one, we have a way to track those within the New World system. That person could receive another referral again if that's up to the officer's discretion, or they could be arrested. Now that arrest could be a criminal citation or booking into jail. Bearing in mind that this is just a misdemeanor, I don't see a whole lot of these going to be booked into jail. It'll probably be a criminal citation. The other side of that, too, is that many times possession of controlled substance arrests are occurring with other arrests and are often found like search incidents to that arrest. So let's say you arrest someone for possession of a stolen car, and then while you're searching that person, they have drugs on them. If that's how those arrests usually happen, so they would just be a charge that would be then added. That would happen that way.
So I'm wondering, do you what's the best way to ask this? Is there a sense, or do you have the sense that officers are going to engage that first and second contact? I mean, given that it really is just a referral, a warning, nothing else beyond that. I mean, do you get the sense that that's going to be time, well spent by officers, or do you think there's going to be a lot of that just goes missing, and there'll never be a third contact because there was never a first or second?
I think on a few layers, this gets kind of dicey because what was a felony is not even a felony. It's not even a misdemeanor on the first two contacts. So if I had seen someone that was, say, openly smoking or using a felony controlled substance in public, my probable cause is pretty high and I can do something right away with that. But on those first two contacts, it's not even an arrestable offense at that point. So we have to make our approach with, okay, what is the governmental interest in this? I think officers will probably take the time when it's a co-occurring arrest. I think it's a lot harder when it's the primary reason for contact. It will depend on the circumstances, but it's one of those things that's it's still a violation of the law that we will have to try to take action upon.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions for Major Olson or for Ms. Naramatsu? Okay, great, thanks. Next up, contract for Green Fleet, EV and biofuel implementation plan development. Mr. Giddings.
Hello, thank you, Madam Chair and council members. We're coming into what we think is a pretty exciting time and a pretty important time for fleet services, as well as we hope for the city of Spokane's fleet. You may recall a few months ago we talked about developing an RFP for the development of our Green Fleet implementation plan. The goal was to find a firm with expertise and deep experience in fleet analysis, clean fuels, electric vehicles, and charging infrastructure planning. It would help us develop a citywide plan to reach our goal that 100% of city-owned or leased vehicles be fueled by electricity or biofuel by 2030. Between the end of April and mid-May, we developed a detailed and thorough request for proposal delineating in basic terms that the company we contract with will, number one, analyze the city's fleet, including fuel type and consumption, collecting data on all vehicles, including age, mileage, class, and usage. Number two, develop a replacement plan that completely replaces the fleet with electric or clean fuel vehicles, identifying timeframes, fuel type, and cost. Number three, develop an alternative fuel and infrastructure plan, also defining timeframes and costs. Number four, identify funding strategies available to the city. And number five, the plan would identify goals and milestones for implementation over the next 10 years. Just over a month ago, we received 8 excellent responses from some very qualified companies across the nation. A selection committee comprised of stakeholders from multiple departments across the city evaluated all the proposals and as a group scored Frontier Energy's proposal the highest. The evaluation scoring was weighted at 35% for technical proposal, 30% for management proposal, and 35% weighting for cost proposal. Frontier's cost proposal came in at $97,755, not including sales tax, which is just below the median for all 8 respondents. Frontier Energy, along with their partners DKS Associates and EIQ Mobility, have in place a very diverse and well-qualified team, as well as vast experience and a long history of working with municipalities on green fleet transition and implementation programs, including, among others, similar projects for the cities of Houston, Texas, and Portland, Oregon. So we are very excited to partner with Frontier to help the city of Spokane develop and implement a plan that we can use for the foreseeable future to transform our fleet towards vehicles fueled by electricity and biofuel.
Questions? Oh, we have lots. Councilmember Mum Pro Tem was first, and then Council President.
Well,
Go
we can
ahead.
address this separately if we want, but I was contacted by Mike Ormsby about possibly a brand change that might need to happen on our previous selection of vehicles. So however you want to fold that in.
And thank you, Councilmember Mum. It might be appropriate if you don't mind if Rick answers any questions that might relate to this contract, and then we can move by leave to discuss a sensitive issue about being able to award or acquire electric vehicles.
Council President.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Rick, for moving this ahead. I've thought for a long time that we should get an outside vendor to support us in this, and especially one like this that's doing the same work for other cities, so we're not reinventing the wheel. So I just wanted to commend that and then make a request that once you get things finalized at the earliest possible time, if you could make sure that they talk with interested council members and council staff so that they really understand the scope of how we understand the law and what needs to be done, so they don't get caught in the middle without knowing. They have to, of course, make their own independent judgments about their recommendations, but I would really look forward to talking with them, and I'm so excited about this, so thank you.
We are too. Thank you, Council President.
So, Mr. Ormsby, what did you want to have done next?
Okay, let me just frame this a little bit. And first of all, let me apologize that we're coming with this issue right now, but I just became aware this morning about 11:30, 11:45 that we're having a very difficult time getting delivery of the electric vehicles that the council approved for parking enforcement, and they really need those vehicles. So Rick is here to talk about this. So here's the reason we wanted to come to council. And I may mispronounce this, but the 5 Krone vehicles that the council authorized, a number of those have become available, but we haven't been able to move fast enough, so we've lost all those. So Rick and his colleagues in Fleet have identified 3 Volts, which are also electric vehicles, different manufacturer, but also electric vehicles. And actually, the council approved up to 5, but these are the only 3 that Fleet's been able to find. They're less expensive than the previous cars, and technically, we could probably substitute with a blue sheet the contract and go ahead and acquire those vehicles. But given how much time has been spent on this whole issue and discussing electric vehicles, we thought discretion would be the better part of valor to come and let the council know that that's what we'd like to be able to do. If we're not able, it's my understanding, and Rick can correct me if I'm wrong, if we're not able to commit quickly to buying these 3 vehicles, we're going to lose those 2 and may not have an additional opportunity to get the electric vehicles that parking enforcement needs. So Rick, correct my misstatements, but that's why we wanted to come to the council, and Rick was available for the meeting today to raise that issue. And if the council does have objections to us proceeding that way, we wanted to hear about it before we went ahead and moved forward with authorizing the purchase and delivery. So Rick, what did I goof up?
Well, nothing that I know of. It's a moving target right now. So, the microchip shortage is creating some microchip shortage and some leftover COVID-related manufacturing issues is making it a real tough environment to buy vehicles. And so by the time we get a quote and do the analysis on it and get it approved, vehicles are gone. They're just a really, really tight supply. And so we're hoping that, when we initially recommended the Konas, a lot of stuff happened afterwards. The factory closed, the Hyundai factory closed that makes them because of a shortage of microchips. And so the supply immediately dried up. We found some other ones that were farther away. We had to get a new quote on shipping them to see what the price was going to be. By the time we got our ducks in a row on that one, they were all gone again. And so we're hoping that we can at least temporarily, if not permanently, find a way to streamline this process a little bit so that if we do source some vehicles that are a good value for the city that we need, that we can act fairly quickly. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but it would, the Chevy Bolts, for example, those kind of came on the market about the same time the Konas were, and so they're actually, the specifications are very similar to the Konas. They actually have a little bit longer range, the price is a little bit less, and so I really think that if we had, if those had been on the table when we were doing the original analysis, that we probably would have chosen them in the first place. So I think if we can find these and we can substitute and act quickly, that we will come up with a pretty good value for the city.
Thank you. Councilmember Mumm, did you have a question?
No, that was the whole comment. I don't think, my recollection is the council was looking for the efficiency of the vehicle, not necessarily the brand.
Yep.
Council President?
Yeah, I just, I appreciate the quick work on it, and so that we can comply with the law. My just question is, I think, I'm trying to remember whether we're leasing or buying, and I don't care. I'm going with your recommendation, just like we went with your earlier recommendation. But if you could just explain the lease buy piece for us, what's going on with that?
Yeah, so we source through Enterprise on this, and they are a pre-approved supplier. They're a pre-competed, and so they're a pretty good partner. We lease. It's an open-ended lease contract, and this is going to be a pilot. So we'll report back on how they're doing, and this is going to be sort of a try out for where we're putting charging infrastructure and some other things. So and so we'll lease these, and then at the end, because if we expect 3 of these vehicles will have parking or license plate readers on them, and so there's a fairly good chance that at the end of this, if they're working like they should, that we will continue to buy them. And so what's good about the Enterprise lease is that we get our equity back on the payments that we make, and so the purchase price at the end of it is significantly less. So and same thing with the Bolts if we go with those. And so it ends up being a pretty flexible program that doesn't cost us a huge amount, and it allows us kind of a lot of latitude to really make the right decisions going forward.
And Council, I might add, as to Rick's point about trying to come up with a different process, Tanya Wallace has asked Sally Stouffer and I to sit down and brainstorm ways that we could do that the council would feel comfortable with, and we'll come back to you before we do that. But we've got to come up with a process that allows us, for instance, in this case, to identify a vehicle that meets specifications that we can get quickly, because Tanya hears the chip shortage could be another 18 months to 2 years, and so we're going to continue to have this issue, particularly when we buy what I'll call alternative vehicles, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but anything other than the standard vehicles that the manufacturers now sell. So we won't do anything with that process till we come back to the council, but at Rick's urging, I think Tanya wants us to be thoughtful about how we can respond in a faster way.
Council President, did you want to add anything? No? Okay. Anybody else? Questions? All right.
Council, thank you for finding the time to take this on such short notice.
That's okay. We'll get you later, Mr. Ormsby.
You will.
All right. Transportation Improvement Board Grant Program discussion with Mr. Picano. Go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon. Sharing my screen here. Might take a second to come up. All right, you should be seeing my screen now. So, good afternoon, Council. As we do with all our grant application programs that we typically submit to, we're briefing Council here today on a current grant opportunity, in this case for the state's Transportation Improvement Board, or TIB grant. TIB does an annual call for projects. Under their umbrella, they administer multiple programs or sub-programs where they kind of divvy up their money. The two primary programs that we frequently submit applications on are the Urban Arterial Program. So that's the largest of TIB's programs. This year, the total available funding for the Northeast region is $7.7 million. There's a variety of project types that you can apply for or submit for under this application process, ranging from pavement preservation reconstruction type projects, mobility or congestion projects, safety, or projects geared towards development, economic development. The other program we commonly submit for is the Urban Sidewalks Program. This program, this year, the funding available is only $1.1 million, and that's for the entire eastern region, which is essentially everything east of the Cascades. And one important criteria for the Urban Sidewalks Program is it has to be locations that are located along arterial roadways. TIB requires a minimum 20% local match. They're looking for projects ideally to be obligated for construction by 2023, so that means start construction in 2023 or request that funding. And then our applications are due by August 13th. One other thing I wanted to note, there is another program that they call the Complete Streets Program that TIB administers. It is kind of unique compared to their other programs. That deadline on that program is the end of this year. Follows a really unique and different process. We will come back. There are projects we're looking at under that program, but we will come back to council at a later date to discuss what we intend to submit for that particular program. So for this current call that we're looking at, under the Urban Arterial Program is a couple of projects that we are considering that may be submitted. First is Ray and Thor Street, 17th Avenue to Hartson Avenue. It's in our CIP plan for upcoming years. And then the second one is a potential project in cooperation with the Northeast PDA, Wellesley Avenue, essentially east of Freya Street. So the decision still needs to be made by Northeast PDA whether they intend or want to submit on this project this year. We would still be the lead agency. They would be doing the legwork in terms of preparation of the application. But they provide to us for our review, make sure we're comfortable with the application, and then we would do that final submittal, if you will, as the lead agency for that project if they choose to want to submit that. And then moving to the Urban Sidewalk Program, the project we've identified here this year is a Haven Street sidewalk infill. So there's several segments along Haven Street, and this is within, just to orient you, within the Haven and Market Street one-way couplet area in Northeast Spokane and Hilliard area. So there's roughly 4 blocks, Rockwell to Heroy towards the southern end of the couplet, about 3 blocks. And then up to the north end of the couplet, Rowan to Nebraska, is another block of missing or absent sidewalk in there. So we feel like this is a project that may compete well for that urban sidewalk program. So that's really it. Open up to any questions if there are any.
And I can't see everybody, so if you have questions, please just jump in.
I do, Kevin. Hi,
Okay,
good to see you.
Go ahead.
The arterial, the first grant, does that preclude money being spent on sidewalks as well? Does it have to be spent curb to curb? Are there any restrictions?
No, there's not. It just depends on the nature of your project. Yeah, it certainly can include sidewalk improvements.
Could we consider that to improve the whole street instead of just the pavement?
In the case of Ray Street, Dorr Street, we would address any sidewalk needs, but that stretch of roadway is essentially a sidewalk for the whole stretch. We'll upgrade ADA ramps. If there are damaged or poor sections of sidewalk, we would replace them there. But the primary focus or need for that scope of work for that project is really the pavement in that situation.
Well, just my recollection is that the sidewalk is right next to that busy street, and I'm trying to get us to have some separation. Maybe I'm not thinking of the right stretch, but whenever we have the opportunity to do that, I'd just like to take it.
No, I think you're right. I think it is mostly adjacent sidewalk through there. That's something we can consider. I think our right-of-way through there is pretty limited, so that would, pretty significantly increase our costs if we went to a separated sidewalk through there. But that's something we can explore, certainly.
So something that we did up in the north side was we actually moved the sidewalk and the separation out into the street because we had more right-of-way in the street. And we took that opportunity to create some more separation. And I think I saw Councilmember Stratton on this call. Boy, do I see people walking and using it now. So back before they weren't, now there's that safety and separation on a high-speed arterial. It was great, and now we have people using it.
Yeah, no, and that's a great approach. We've used that on a variety of projects. I think in this particular case, Ray Thor, it's pretty limited. Space is limited. Curb to curb there, we're pretty hemmed in. But we certainly, as I said, we can look at if there's some opportunities. It might be intermittent, for some separated sidewalk possibly.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Picano? And if you can unshare your screen, then I can see everybody. There we go. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And before we go on to council requests, I am going to ask for 2 council members to approve all these staff requests so that they can move on to our agenda. And just a show of hands, do we have approval for these 5 items? Did I get that right? 4 items, sorry. Just a show of hands. Got 1, got 2, got 3, got 4. I got more than I asked for. All right. And our final is a council request from Councilmember Wilkerson, financial support for the Way Out Shelter. Did you want to lead us off, Councilmember?
Just briefly, then I'm going to turn it over to Mike Ormsby because it's a little bit more into it than I'm aware of. So we know the Way Out Shelter played a critical role during COVID and to help house our homeless populations. They are currently under remodeling, but under the regional approach, the city had committed to help fund this going forward. So with that, I'm going to let Mike Ormsby take it over and go from there. Thank you, Mike.
We'll need you to unmute yourself, Mr. Ormsby.
Sorry, Councilwoman Wilkerson and I did have a chance to talk about this. And so by way of background, the Way Out Shelter is part of the bridge housing concept. And going back to 2019, the city was asking the county, and I think the council was pretty involved in this, to participate and partner on some of these projects. The council or the county commissioners adopted a resolution indicating that for a 5-year period of time on the bridge housing approach, the county would match the $500,000 that the city was committed to spend. And the county, for the first year of that, just sent the money to the city. The city then turned around and used that money for shelter system expenses at that time. Then after the former Spokane Housing Authority building was purchased, the county adopted a resolution saying, instead of sending the money to the city and having the city add its $500,000 to it, we're just going to go ahead and send the money directly to the operator of the Salvation Army, or the facility, which was Salvation Army. And so they asked the city to do the same thing, commit to go ahead and transmit the $500,000 we had been spending to the Salvation Army. This resolution also does a second thing, and this is what Councilwoman Wilkerson asked me to follow up on, and frankly, the information I got was not complete, so I still need to do some work, is the city separately, and I think Council Member Beggs or Council President Beggs probably knows more about this than I do because he and the mayor attend the Thursday afternoon meetings with our other partners, would provide up to $1 million to cover grant funding that has not yet been committed for the operation of the shelter for the time period between October 1st and the end of 2022. And so the city's total commitment would be $3.5 million. The $1 million that the mayor committed, number one, we may not ever spend, but as Tanya tells me, we need to count on being able to spend it. Much of that money is the previous commitment by the city that we never had to spend because the bridge shelter facility was not operating. About $750,000 of that million, I'm told, is already there. And so we'd have to come up with another $250,000 if we ever have to commit the $1 million for that delta between the revenue the city, county, and the valley and county together have already committed. So that, in a nutshell, is kind of the financial picture. I need to do more, and maybe council members remember because I wasn't attending the council meetings at the time. I need to find out more about the level of the city's commitment at the $500,000. What I do have is the county's resolution saying they're matching the city's $500,000. I need to find out how that commitment was made, and it may just be in the budget, but I need to do some more work on that. And I told Councilmember Wilkerson that I would do that. And I'm sorry I didn't have it done now. I kind of misunderstood the context of how we got to where we are until we talked this morning.
So before we go to questions, if I might, Councilmember Wilkerson, were you asking about the county's pass-through money or their general fund money? And is this the city's general fund money or pass-through federal or state money? Were you differentiating?
Yes. So our $500,000 that I was getting clarity on would be coming out of our general fund, or we really haven't identified where that money would be coming from. So that was my initial concern, and that I was unaware of the 5-year commitment to fund it at that level going forward. So that's what the clarity I needed on. And then to inquire as to, are there any other requirements or stipulations, outcomes that we can expect from our contribution of the $500,000 a year for potentially over 5 years?
Other questions? Council President.
Yeah, I'm just going to chime in that I do, as Mr. Ormsby said, I attend a regional leadership meeting on housing with the mayor and Commissioner Cuney and Mayor Wick. And often the providers show up in the meeting. And so the city all along has been committed to that $500,000. I don't know that we, again, where the documentation is, but that has always been part of the plan. But I wanted to raise kind of Councilmember Wilkerson's issue is the money that the county is putting is coming from it's pass-through funding. They use some CARES money to some significant CARES money that they invested in both that building and the Cannon Street, which we really appreciate. So, but it's not coming out of general fund. And, you know, we've been regional meeting now for a couple of years now, and we still have not gotten agreement that the other jurisdictions are going to use general funds. And I think what really needs to happen is we need to agree to a per capita amount on homeless services and sheltering from all the local jurisdictions so that it's not just the city. And then the other thing that Councilmember Wilkerson sort of raised is that what are we going to get for our money? And we're going to get a bridge housing, which I'm super excited about. It's still technically low barrier, pretty close to low barrier housing, but it's going to be people with they'll have semi-private cubicles, and they know they'll be there the 60 to 90 days, and they'll get job coaching, and I really think that it'll be successful. But you might recall that we've been using that shelter until June 30th as a low barrier night-by-night shelter of 102 people. And our law says we're not supposed to lose those beds, and we have lost those beds temporarily. My understanding is that the bridge housing is just the top 2 floors, and that the bottom floor is available for night-by-night shelter. It would have a separate entrance. Our remodeling money that we're spending is for doing that. And in the past, Salvation Army has offered to have 40 to 50 night-by-night beds there. And so I think we need to make that part of it. We would have to pay them more money for that. The $500,000 doesn't get us that. But we need to preserve the capacity we have until such time as we know we don't need that capacity. And I think if you look around the streets, you can see that we need more night-by-night shelters. So I just want to raise that awareness that for me, when we get to that money, it's to me to say, and a condition is you have to be willing to contract with us for a night-by-night shelter as well at, a different contract and additional money. So that's my agenda. I just want to put out there while everyone's listening.
Councilmember Wilkerson, did you want to add? And I'll get to you, Councilmember Stratton.
Well, thank you, Councilmember Pierre. I did want to add that I think this is an important piece in our housing on our continuum for the homeless. I just need to know a little bit more clarity of the financial piece, but totally supportive. But let's just work out where the resources are coming from, because there are a lot of demands on resources, as people love to tell me.
Councilmember Stratton.
I was just going to ask Mr. Perkins, has there been a meeting yet with the Emerson Garfield neighborhood? I had sent a note probably a month ago. They've requested to meet with the mayor and city administration. The thing that I'm most concerned about is the lack of communication to that neighborhood. But also, I don't believe that neighborhood, and Michael Cathcart might be able to chime in here, I don't think any of them are aware that there will be shelter beds that continue in that area. They were told it was bridge housing, and the whole building would be bridge housing. The homeless bed piece is something they need to know about.
Johnny Perkins, did you want to go ahead?
Yes, please. In fact, I was trying to quickly review my calendar, see Councilmember Stratton when that was scheduled. It has been scheduled with leaders, business leaders, and members of that community to address that very topic. The other thing, Councilmember Kinnear, I wanted to ask, given there's some additional questions related to the funding, what I'd like to suggest, I think there's a Finance and Administrative Committee meeting on August 16. I'd like to offer for our Chief Financial Officer, as well as the Mayor's Advisor on Homelessness and Housing, to appear at that committee to walk through the way out shelter as it relates to specifically the finances, and then what this bridge shelter operation looks like, if that would be the pleasure of the council.
And Councilmember Wilkerson, you're the chair of that committee.
Yes.
Is that something you can accommodate?
Absolutely. Thank you, Johnny Perkins.
Council President.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in support of Councilmember Stratton and Councilmember Cathcart, that seems like all these contracts that we're coming up with to sign they need good neighbor agreements in place, that are negotiated and enforceable. And my sense of the Salvation Army operation is that they are very good neighbors themselves, and they do neighborhood cleanups. But I just want to be clear for any neighborhood that there should be a good neighbor agreement. And then we also need to have our agreements on real-time reporting of who's in and who's leaving so that we can have an outward facing that. So as those contracts get developed, we need to do that and include if we have to put money in for technology. So I'm just aware that we have contracts that are coming up, and we need to make sure those are always part of them.
Councilmember Cathcart or Mum, did you have any comments, or Burke?
I just wanted to agree with what
I was just
said.
Agree with Council President on his comments about good neighbor agreements. That I think that's going to be the thing that will help the most. The neighbors that I've talked to around there had no idea that this was going to continue on as a night by night. That was kind of a big surprise when that announcement was made several weeks back. And so that communication piece, I think, on this is really important. But identifying some sort of an agreement where everybody can live, cohesively, I think is really the way to go, and to limit those impacts. So, yeah, I think we can find some solution there. That'd be the best way forward.
Councilmember Stratton.
I would just recommend maybe we think about when we meet in finance to talk about this. Maybe we can also talk about have a discussion about Catholic Charities and the acquisition of the motel and the city match, and also Hope House funding. There's apparently a request out there for a city match that hasn't gone anywhere, if I'm correct in this. So maybe we kind of put that together as a larger discussion about some of these shelters and what our commitments have been, and so that we're all moving in the same direction on these.
So is that something that's large enough for a study session? Councilmember Mum Pro Tem, or do you think that would be a study session topic?
Well, let's check with the chairs of the committees. They know their capacity. So if the chairs of the committees have space,
yeah, and
if not,
that would be, Council, we can discuss this offline too. We don't have to deal with it right now. So, okay, good. So we have two things left. One is I'd like to make a statement, take a brief point of privilege to talk about what we've seen as in our neighborhoods as unnecessary panic and fear that's circulating the community around the state legislature's updated laws around policing. And what I think is happening is we have a failure to communicate between what the law actually says and how it is being interpreted and its impact on law enforcement. So last night there was a shooting downtown. SPD officers on foot patrol in the area pursued a fleeing suspect who was detained a short time later. So at that point, they must have felt comfortable with the new laws to enforce this. And additionally, while Jacoby and I were staffing a shift at the Carousel Cooling Center last week, I talked with two officers assigned to our downtown precinct about the impact to the ability for SPD to do their job. And hearing from those officers about their, what I would call dire concerns, they are very concerned. And after listening to the chief's presentation at our study session, I believe we are at a disconnect. And I really think it's imperative that we all get on the same page about what these laws actually do and what they don't, and where we need to potentially seek adjustments. I do not want to plant fear in our community, and at the same time want to make sure that our officers feel like they can enforce the laws and that there is no ambiguity around what they can and cannot do. And I'd love to hear from some of you if you have any thoughts on this. Go ahead, Councilmember Stratton.
I'll just say that in my neighborhood, in the coffee shop that I go to, in the Safeway, there's still, everybody's talking about this, and there's a lot of fear. So every time I go somewhere, I end up being, challenged by the public to, get to the bottom and to see. The big question is it true that the police won't come when we call them? And I think if you're somebody that lives in West Central and some of these neighborhoods that have had high incidents of crime, it's very, very scary. So I feel bad that we had to use scare tactics, that those kind of tactics were used for the public. Because when you have a police officer standing up in front of a group saying this and this and this, and by the way, we're not going to be able to respond like we used to, that's when people respect the police and they respect what they say. So somewhere we have to change the dialogue, because it's not getting out to the community that it might not be so dire. It's not getting out there. There's still just a lot of fear.
Go ahead, Councilmember Wilkerson.
Thank you. And also, when I made my comments last week, it's not just for the people on the street. I was talking about everyday citizens like Councilmember Stratton's talking about, who live in their homes, live in their neighborhoods, who are used to calling the police, who may now have second thoughts. Some of them were on the fence to begin with about calling the police. Now with these new laws and the narrative that's going on out there, it just makes it more challenging. So really, yes, it's our homeless and unhoused, but it's our regular citizens who really took that information and processed it like, I can't call for help when I want to or need to.
Go ahead, Councilmember Stratton.
I just wanted to say one more thing that is bothersome to me personally and that I felt threatened was the email. I don't know who else got it, but I actually had an email from somebody saying, then we citizens will just take the law into our own hands. That scares me. And I think there are a lot of people out there that feel that way. And it scared me, and I usually don't get that scared. But anyway, there's a big feeling out there as well.
So anybody else want to comment? I'm hoping that we can come to some. Oh, go ahead, Assistant Chief.
Councilmember Kinnear, thank you. Certainly, we do not want to do anything or say anything that's going to promote fear in the community. I do think that there is a disconnect. I think that the disconnect lies in that some folks don't think that the changes to the law that have taken place are as significant as they're being viewed, not just by our agency, but by agencies across the state. There is certainly, to say that there isn't going to be a different way of providing police services under certain circumstances, I think would be disingenuous. But I do agree that there's no place for providing information that evokes fear or misinformation. But I do think the community needs to know that the legislation and the intent from this legislation does change and will change the tactics that will be used by police. And it does make certain policing activities, particularly proactive police activities, more challenging and maybe even risky for the officers that are involved.
I need to respond to that. I wonder if Council President will as well. And while I don't necessarily disagree, I'm challenged by this just happened. So we've just had these changes. Let's give everyone time to marinate on them and see if they're as dire as some are saying. But change is scary for everybody. And part of the problem, I think, is we're looking, and all of us are looking at these changes thinking, what's it going to do? How is it going to change us and our community? And it just may change our community. It may change it for the better, but we need to wait and see. We need to see how this is all going to unfold. And I rely on our legal department, I rely on our police department to keep us informed factually and not with fear-based information, especially for our citizens who aren't living this day to day. So that is my ask. If I have here a bad echo here too, if we can just keep our cool, keep everyone informed as things unfold, I think we'll all be better for it. I know you want to say something, Assistant Chief. Go ahead.
My only response is I agree with what you're saying. but there is no time to wait for the law enforcement officers. The law is now in effect, and we have to do our absolute best to abide with these new laws and to interpret them. We don't have the benefit of having time to try and figure out how this is going to look in the future. We have to change now because we are under the impact of the law as it is written. And it is having an impact on the way that we're delivering services, and we're doing everything that we can to provide the services that we can in a way that's different than we were before.
Thanks. Council President, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in as well, and I agree that police are going to have to adjust, and anytime you adjust to new laws, there's changes. There are going to be changes. That was the point of the new laws. They were to improve things, and Chief Meidel gave a great presentation to us of about 33 things that have changed, and almost every one he seemed to be very positive about. They were very positive changes. I was certainly reading them. Yep, that's an improvement. That's an improvement. And I talked to one of our training lieutenants, and he was very optimistic about the overall package of the laws and said that, the glass is half full, and it's great. It's going to make us a better department. And so I would just like to see more balance. And I think what was disturbing to me is that our police department has used its media outlets to take a political stand. I saw one of our PIO reports about an incident, and they put in a line that says, due to House Bill 1310, we were not able to stop a fleeing suspect to investigate. And that's just not appropriate at all. Police have to make decisions all the time on the fly in police procedure, and sometimes they can stop someone, sometimes they can't stop with someone. And to try to make a political issue on one case, and then as Councilmember Kinnear noted the other night, a different situation, but a similar one of a bunch of people fleeing a scene of a shooting, police were able to stop the person regardless of that law. And, I wasn't at either, and maybe the circumstances were different. I'm sure they're different, but that's what I don't want to see our police is getting political, is they have a hard enough job to do without trying to get political about it. And these reforms were for a reason. Essentially, the change from reasonable suspicion to probable cause is not a very big change in terms of how much it takes to get probable cause, but it was meant to keep police from stopping with force people who had done nothing wrong. And that it was meant. And in our system, as we know, it's far better for a guilty person to go free than an innocent person to be detained and in jail. And we, every day, because we demand proof beyond a reasonable doubt, people who have done something go free. And this was just an expansion of that. And the Terry stop idea that you could just use force on people with very little suspicion was not in our Constitution. It's not in our Fourth Amendment. That was a judicial created philosophy. And this law just takes us back to our Constitution. Is it going to be slightly more difficult in some cases? It will be, but that's our constitutional system. If we were going for efficiency in law enforcement and all things, we would not have the freedoms that we have. So I get that it's going to be an adjustment, and as Assistant Chief said, his people don't have time to even really fully consider things, but I'm committed to those parts of the law that need clarification from the Attorney General's office and the legislature. I'm going to work as hard to get those clarifications as I worked hard to get these reforms, because our officers need that understanding, and I know they'll do a great job in the meantime. But I really want our people in uniform using our resources not to be political.
So I opened up a can of worms. Major Olson is first, and then Councilmember Cathcart.
I just want to echo what the Assistant Chief said, that there is a lot of ambiguity around some of them, just on the issue of whether or not we can use our 37 millimeters and 40 millimeter less lethal weapons has been hotly debated across the state. The CJTC has come out and said that they're not going to hold anyone accountable for now. They literally put that in the paperwork that they won't do it for now. But that doesn't mean that that's not going to go forward. and have some sort of retribution moving forward. So we're operating the best we can under the legal advice we have from our legal advisors, both within the city and across the state. We are trying to do our best. I can tell you that I've gone to, I lost track of how many roll calls while we went through sometimes up to 2 hours of training, trying to cram the massive amounts of legislative changes into that training. And our officers are eager to get out there and figure out how they can serve our public and keep them safe. That is their main goal. That's their main drive. But I can tell you they're also concerned about the fact that there are massive and dramatic changes to the way we do our policing. And as the council president mentioned, moving from probable cause or moving from reasonable suspicion to Terry stop to probable cause it's a big jump, and it will hinder our ability to solve many crimes sooner. And then that's just one small touch. There's the different things we've already talked about. The prohibition of the lateral vascular neck restraint, which is probably going to be something that could be seen across the nation, was something that our department used safely for over 25 years without any significant injuries, and that's a valuable tool that we're going to be missing out on. So we're just making a big change, because if you take someone's tool that they've relied upon for decades to subdue someone without injury and to minimize the risk to others quickly, and you say, now I want you to use something else, it does change those schemas. So our department's working quickly to adopt changes, but they're also trying to look through and figure out the safe way for them to do that while navigating the changes that have come our way, because there's a lot of them.
Councilmember Cathcart, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I think sometimes some of the biggest, most contentious issues, debates, are when not everybody's on the same page fact-wise, whether it's between the mayor's office and council, or in this case, maybe council and SPD. So, and I've been tracking, a lot of the incidents around the state, and I've seen a lot of press releases or articles that reference the House bills and legislation as the reason why some drastic decisions were made. But what I'm wondering is, could we put together some sort of scenario-based FAQ that could help all of us to get on the same page and agree on kind of what the facts on the ground are, so that, where there's differences of agreement, it's over policy and not what the facts are. And I think that would help the community, would help council, would help all of us, I think, to get on the same page. And if there's something that's glaring that needs to be changed, then that's something that perhaps could be advocated for at the state level in the next go-around. But especially given that we're still a year out from any sort of rulemaking or model policy coming from the Attorney General, there is just so much ambiguity. I think it'd be really good if we could all just get on the same page in terms of what the facts are.
Thanks. And that was my original ask, is we have a community that is frightened, and we all need to be talking about the same thing the same way and not disagreeing with each other, at least in public. We can do it, in meetings behind closed doors, but let's get our swans in line, not our ducks in a row, but our swans in line, so that when we're talking to the community, we're not instilling fear. Council President, did you want the last word? Oh, good. All right. Now, anybody else before I go to Mr. Perkins? Okay. And Mr. Perkins, you have an announcement. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Kinnear. I just wanted to remind everybody, very exciting, tomorrow night, Tuesday, August 3rd, is National Night Out. And I want to encourage everybody, I believe there's about approximately 27 locations throughout this great city where there's going to be community celebrations for public safety, our law enforcement officers and staff, as it relates to various barbecues, potlucks, and just a celebration of the men and women who protect and serve Spokane. So I want to encourage everybody. I know I'm going to be out for about 5 hours getting to as many locations and sites as I'm able to, and want to encourage everyone else to do the same. I believe there's 27 locations on our list, and it's a real day to celebrate the men and women who provide that public safety for Spokane. Thank you, Council Member.
Thank you. And Councilmember Beggs, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say it's one of my funnest nights of the year, to really go out and meet the neighborhoods and community members who have come together to self-protect their neighborhood, and see our first responders there, and they feed you really well, and it's just it's a great a great atmosphere. So it's also primary night, so we're already out anyway. And I just think it's one of the best things we do, and I really want to give kudos to the cop shop because they really do a lot of the planning on that and empowering people. So thanks, everyone.
I too will be out with Officer Barrow, and it is a lot of fun. And I've always tell the officers I go with, they don't want to see me, they want to see the police. They don't care about council, they just want to see the police. And that's essentially what happens, and I think it's great. So thank you, Mr. Perkins, for that announcement. We're going to have a fun night tomorrow. Anything else for the good of the order? Righty. So we will see you next August 30th, and same time, same place. And have a wonderful day. This meeting is adjourned. We'll see you back at 3:30.